Welcome to the Be Bold podcast. I'm Beth Whitman. Hey there. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. This is where I feature conversations with women who have inspirational stories to share. Many of these women are on the cutting edge. They are forging their own paths to success, and really, they are kicking butt in the process. If this is your first time listening, I encourage you to go back to previous episodes to listen to some or all of the amazing women I've had the pleasure of sitting down with to discuss a variety of topics. These women come from a wide range of backgrounds, and they find themselves in an equally wide range of stages in their lives. What they have in common, though, is they are bold in what they do. They follow what they love, and somehow they've created a lifestyle that supports it. Now, the reason for this podcast is that it's when we hear stories about other people's success and their triumph over obstacles, we become inspired. Really, it makes us feel like anything is possible. And that's why I love bringing other women's stories to you. I believe we all have the ability to become better versions of ourselves. And what I'm hoping is that you'll find pearls of wisdom in these conversations, bits of information that inspire and motivate you. And I'm hoping you'll hear something that just makes you want to change and make choices in your life that ultimately makes you happier and more fulfilled. That is my goal here, and I'm so glad you're here with me. Now, I'm back from a pretty spectacular vacation on Kauai, and I have to admit it's been a little difficult to return to Seattle. John and I spent a week there. Shout out to the Grand Hyatt Kauai. We sat on our lanai, we drank coffee in the mornings, we watched the sunrise. Just right in front of us, the palm trees were swaying and we could watch the waves roll in. I recorded a couple of podcasts there, and you'll get to hear those soon. It was really just a week of eye candy because it is such a gorgeous island. And as much as I love Seattle, I have to admit that driving over the West Seattle Bridge to where we live, and I do love it here, I really do, I was so put off by the amount of concrete and the cranes, the construction cranes and the Port of Seattle cranes, because we see both of those as we come over this bridge. They just dominated our view as we came home, and it really made me want to turn around and just go back to the airport and fly back to Hawaii. Now, today, it's a pretty typical fall day here. The sun's out, but there's lots of clouds, and there's rain showers that keep rolling through. And really, it's weird. It's kind of windy, but it's also a little bit on the warm side, so it's not too bad. This morning, I ran 16 miles. I went a little bit different route than I normally do. I went through downtown, and I felt like it was a nice way to kind of get reacquainted with the city. So that was nice. Really, I can't complain too much about my time here because probably by the time you hear this, I will either be in New York City or I will have just returned from there. I'm going for just a couple of days to speak at a private dinner for JP Morgan Chase clients. I know it's a little bit of an odd thing. But anytime I have an opportunity to speak at events and talk about travel, I am good with it. So I'm happy to be doing that. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be heading off to Machu Picchu and the Galapagos for about a month, and I'm going to be leading 2 tours there. So, at this point, Seattle, bring on the rain, the blustery weather. I have no complaints. I have no room for complaining because I'm going to be out of here shortly. Now, if you're interested in joining me on a future trip to Machu Picchu, the Galapagos, India, Ireland, Papua New Guinea, some other destination, just check out all of my tours at wandertours.com. That's WANDER tours.com. Now, these tours generally sell out really quickly, so you need to jump on them if you're interested. I just posted the Ireland tour. It's a women-only tour for the fall of 2019. Literally, I posted it a few days ago, and it's already 1/3 full. So yeah, don't put it off if you want to join me on a trip. Okay, enough about me. You want to hear about today's guest? She's actually all about travel. And I have to tell you, I am so excited to be bringing this conversation to you today, not only because the guest is a friend of mine, and I'm so delighted to share her story with you, but it's really because we recorded this more than a year ago, and I'm finally getting it to you. So it's really exciting for me. I had a technical glitch when we recorded, and partway through, and it really early on, like 15 minutes into it, there was a crackling noise that continued through the whole thing. Now, I didn't know it until after we finished up and I got home and I listened to it. There was no way that I could publish it. So much to my sadness, I had written that episode off completely, and we've been wanting to re-record, but we have not been in the same city since that time. Since then, I've started working with an editor recently, an audio editor, a couple of them. And after hearing one of them talk on another podcast about how he could pretty much save any audio recording, I remembered this conversation with today's guest, and I sent it off to him just as a Hail Mary to see if he could make it listenable. And he did more than that. He made it fantastic. So thank you. Big shout out to John and Justin for making this recording happen. So with their magical help, you're getting to hear this conversation with Sherry Ott. Because this was recorded so long ago, you may hear a reference or two to events that are long past, so just ignore those. Okay, so who is Sherry Ott? Sherry is a long-term traveler. She's a blogger and a photographer. And as she says, her one goal in life is to make you wish you were somewhere else. And that's kind of me today. I kind of wish I was somewhere else, like Hawaii. Over 11 years, she's lived in Vietnam. She's hiked the Annapurna Circuit with her dad. She drove 10,000 miles from London to Mongolia in the Mongol Rally. She's walked across Spain on the Camino de Santiago. She's kayaked in Antarctica, and she drove an auto rickshaw across India for charity. Now, when we spoke last year, she was in Denver checking it out and considering making it her home base, and subsequently, she has done just that. But still, she is seeking epic adventures to intriguing places in order to challenge herself and inspire people to overcome their fears and reap the benefits of travel. She just now happens to do that from Colorado, where she also explores the mountains and she fosters kittens. And that's the one thing that I'm super jealous about, because I just travel too much to have little kitties, but I would love to. Now, she's got a pretty big following, so you might already know her, but if not, she writes about her travel lifestyle and all of her world adventures on ottsworld.com, and that's OTTS world.com, and you can find her on her social media channels as well, and I'll link to those in the show notes. Now, in this conversation, we talked about what it was like for her to take a quote-unquote career break, thinking that she was just going to be traveling for a year, and then that turned into more than a decade. Along the way, she turned those travels into a lifestyle and into work as a digital nomad. And although it sounds quite sexy, she does admit there's a downside to being on the road for so long, and that includes a lot of stress of having to make so many logistical plans and figuring out where she's going to sleep every night. Not to mention the loneliness that comes with that. Now, in this conversation, we also talk about the tools and technology and how they have changed over the years and how they've made being a digital nomad actually possible. She's got some great insight about travel and about her lifestyle, and I know you're going to love this conversation. So please enjoy this episode with Sherry Ott. Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see you.
I know. It's great to see you, too. We were, before we started recording, we were trying to figure out when we saw each other last. It's been years, and I can't even remember.
Probably 5 at least.
Yeah, and I can't even remember where we first met, but it's been a while, too. So
wow. Yeah, after this long, it all just kind of blends together.
It does,
now.
But it's the travel world that brought us together.
Yes.
And that's the cool thing. So the theme here is travel. The podcast is Be Bold. So what we're going to do is just throughout this, we'll find out a little bit about your bold badass side, as you say. So we're here in Denver. I'm speaking at the Travel and Adventure Show this weekend, and it just so happens that you're here in Denver as well. So tell us why you're in Denver and kind of give us a flavor of what you're doing right about now.
Well, I am here in Denver because I just honestly needed a place to sit and do some work. And because, as you mentioned, I'm nomadic, I don't have a home, which is kind of hard to grasp. But that means that every time I have downtime and I'm not on the road traveling and maybe doing a project, that I've got to find a place to sit and organize that. And so a friend who had a place here, and I wanted to come and check Denver out also a little bit more because I'm interested in maybe making it a home base one day.
Neat.
We'll
Neat.
see.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's the coolest thing. Actually, one of the things I love about my lifestyle is I end up in a place, whether it's Auckland or Denver or wherever in the world, and I'll find out that I've got people that I can just run into.
Right.
It's just crazy. It makes you believe that the world is really small. So I thought it was really cool that you were going to be here.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. It's great. And a bunch of other travel people too, which is,
I didn't know any of that.
I know. Yeah, that is really neat. So you had mentioned, I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but since you brought it up, I want to go down the path a little bit. So you mentioned you needed to get some work done and you thought you kind of needed a place to land. What's that like for you when you've got maybe a few weeks or you've got a little bit of time and you think like, crap, what am I going to do? Like, how does that work in the world of Sherry Ott?
Oh, goodness. It's actually that is a challenge. Finding places to sleep all the time is a challenge. And it wouldn't be if I was, rich, but I'm not. Yeah. And so it's always a matter of budget and time and where do I go and where is going to be somewhat comfortable. But yeah, finding places or knowing what I'm going to do next, the logistics of my life is complicated, I would say. That's what I always say. So, and I was thinking about it the other day because I just came from Australia and I had to go to New York City because I have a storage unit in New York City and I've had it there for 10 years now. And so I needed to drop off some stuff and pick up some things. And then I came out to Denver. But I was thinking as I got on the plane from Australia to New York about like, most people just get on this plane and they don't think anything about it. Like they're sad their vacation is done or whatever, but they know they're going to get back. They're going to go to their apartment. They're going to unpack their suitcase and it's going to be done.
Somebody's going to pick them up at the airport.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you don't even think about it. But for me, that process starts a couple weeks earlier where I go, where am I going to go stay in New York while I have to do stuff in my storage unit? And,
is it stressful for you?
Yes. The answer is yes, because it's been such a long time. And this is my own guilt complex of, I rely on a lot of people and a lot of friends who have been so wonderful throughout the years. And at some point, and they love it. They've never, ever complained about putting me up or having me visit or whatever. In fact, most of them are asking me to come.
Yeah.
But after I think you've been doing this so long, it becomes a little bit of a guilt complex for me because I'm constantly relying on people.
Mm-hmm. But what a great way to live in the world.
Yeah, though. It is. It's beautiful. When I can sit back and kind of look at it from the outside, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
Because that's really how I've been living and surviving. And granted, I mean, I work and I make money, but really being flexible in constant uncertainty and having people interested in putting you up and taking care of you in a way and showing you their places or whatever. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah.
It sure is. So you're looking for maybe a home base. Right now you've got storage in New York. So you have you're probably, other than travel and flights and that kind of thing, your one kind of constant expense is having storage unit?
Yes, that has been that's probably, you're right. I haven't really thought about it.
Oh, sorry.
Before. No, that is the one constant. My other kind of constant expenses, I suppose, are, insurance, which is a whole nother bag of worms, but medical insurance.
Right.
Used to be cell phone, still is, but that wasn't in the beginning. It's just changed over the years. But I have no other real expense. I mean, then there's stuff, of course, expenses with the website and stuff like that I run. But yeah, but no electricity. I don't pay for Wi-Fi. I don't.
You don't have a car or mortgage or apartment, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yep. That's great. So in your storage unit, you had mentioned you had to kind of come back to New York and you have to swap out things for the next trip or that. So you've got clothes and.
Yeah. I had been gone from the storage unit for 4 months on this particular outing. And that 4 months had taken me to Antarctica. As well as it also took me up to near the Arctic in Manitoba to see polar bears.
Oh, neat.
And then I was in New Zealand summer and Australia summer. So I had all these different environments. And the big problem was I had a bunch of stuff for really cold weather and I needed to drop that stuff and get other stuff.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
And it just, after 4 months of living out of the bag, it was like, okay, this stuff needs to get changed over.
Yeah. So what I have found in my own home, it can get kind of tricky because it used to be that it's summertime. I have my summer clothes in the house and I've got winter clothes kind of packed away. Mm-hmm. And then you swap it out, 6 months later or however. And so now might be the middle of winter and I'm going to India. Yeah. And so I suddenly need warm weather clothes. So now everything has to be accessible to me. So how do you deal with that? Do you just think screw it, I've got to go buy something because it's actually in my storage and it would cost me more to...
Yes, I have to do that a lot. And it really bugged me because I can't, it's probably one of my most common things I say on a trip is like, oh, I have that in storage.
Yeah.
But I don't have it with me.
I know.
And it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
But so sometimes I just go buy stuff. But I was thinking about, you were talking about the organization, and I'm laughing because like, oh my God, if you could see my storage unit. It's not big. It's like the size of a bathroom. So, but basically like all the stuff that I haven't seen for 10 years is shoved in the back. But in the front, it's all suitcases and backpacks, various ones that I've used throughout the years. And I've got it somewhat organized in a sense that this particular backpack is all running gear. This particular backpack is all hiking, kind of camping
That's
stuff.
brilliant. Yeah.
This one is all short sleeve shirts.
Yeah.
And this one is like when I need business stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a dresser, but it's a hack.
It's kind of like a dresser. You'll have to, do you have pictures of that posted somewhere online?
I do. People
good.
are always fascinated when I go to my storage unit. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can totally imagine. So kind of the path that you took was you took a year off from your job. You thought you were going to travel for just a year and then you were going to go figure it out.
Yep.
Afterwards.
That was the hope.
So on that trip, where did you go and what kind of enamored you with the whole lifestyle?
Well, I'm going to back up for 1 second because I was not an expert traveler. In fact, I was a very novice traveler. I didn't have a passport until I was 30 years old. And when I started this career break or this trip to take the year off, I was 36. And I had been to a few places out of the country since between 30 and 36, but nothing ever longer than 2 weeks and not any kind of like what I would call independent travel. You know, it was always like a intrepid trip or something, you know, like small group travel. So I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. But yeah, I took off and the idea was be there a year. The first place I went was I flew from JFK to Nairobi.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just stepped right into the
you sure
into
did.
the game.
Oh my gosh.
But I did it actually. That sounds crazy, but I actually went to Nairobi first because I had some friends in New York that were from Nairobi, and they were inviting me out. And I thought, well, this is a great time to do this. I knew I wanted to do the career break, and I didn't quite know when I was going to kick it off. I was trying to do it very logically based on what I had going on at work and financial savings and everything, of course. But then this came up, and I thought, well, this is kind of a nice way to go with someone. Stay with them, which I did. And my whole goal was I wanted to go to Kilimanjaro and climb Kilimanjaro. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, that gets me over there. And then, so I did. I stayed with them for 2 weeks and went around Kenya and then branched off on my own and left them and then went and did Kilimanjaro or attempted Kilimanjaro.
Oh, we'll have to talk about that later. Me having just gotten back from there.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. And you made it.
Yeah.
Yay. So I started in Africa basically. And the nice thing was for the first probably maybe 2 months, let's say a month and a half, I was with people. So I was either with my friends from Kenya or when I did Kilimanjaro, my sister came and she joined me. But then we went to Cape Town after that, and I'll still never forget this day when my sister left me and went to the airport and I was on my own for the first time, and that was the first time I was ever going to stay in a hostel. And I sat there crying as she left, and I just thought, oh my God, I'm really going to do this. And that was really kind of, to me, like that marked the real beginning.
Right.
Because I was terrified.
Right. Did you know at the time that you were crying because you were terrified, or did you think, oh, I'm going to miss you so much, I'm crying?
No, I knew I was scared.
Okay.
I definitely knew I was scared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just, you go through your whole adult life planning what you're going to do and going on this path. And I'm very much a type A personality. I'm fairly conservative, I think. But I had taken that, I had ripped up that plan, and I had no idea what was going to happen next. Even though when I planned out the year of travel, like I said, I had always planned on being gone a year. I went against my gut feeling, which would have been to plan the whole year, because at that time, I couldn't even grasp trying to think about like, oh my God, I've got to find a place to sleep for, every day this year. And instead, I kind of planned out the first 3 months. And when I say planned, it was planned. Like I knew where I was going to sleep and stay and so on.
That's crazy
my
now, isn't it?
definition of plan has changed since then.
Yeah.
And so I did that for the first 3 months in the hope, when I took off for that initial trip, I remember saying, if I stick to my original plan, I'm going to be really disappointed in myself. Like I knew that I wanted change. Yeah. It's just that I kind of had to force myself into that change. Yeah. And that's just the personality that I am. Or
ease yourself into it. Yeah. I think that's because we all do that. I think most of us do that. We ease into it.
Yeah. So, and it turned out, and I often tell that to people who are interested in traveling for longer term, because the initial instinct is always to get everything all planned out. Like I'm going to plan all my flights and everything. And I always say, you know what, no matter if you're going on a month vacation, a year vacation, or even really 2 weeks at times, I always kind of stick to that 1/3 rule, like plan the first third. And the beauty of travel to me is to see where it takes you.
Right.
And you're going to get there and you're going to meet people and you're going to talk to people and you're going to find out there's something really cool that you didn't know about, or you're going to meet someone that's going to take you a whole different direction. And it's so nice to be able to follow those things.
Right.
Because that's where all the magic happens to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
so John and I try to do a thing, and I've done this also in my solo travels, where you have the first night booked and you have the last night booked.
Oh,
so
perfect.
so you've got it sandwiched, and then you just kind of let the rest of it unfold to a certain degree.
And that is really the key. And I agree with you 100% on, I don't think about the last night, but definitely the first night, first few nights.
Yeah,
because when I get into a new place, I'm often quite scared.
Right.
Not scared for my life, but just like everything's new.
Right. And it's a lot of times
you don't know your way around.
The middle of the night. If it's an international flight, a lot of times those land in the middle of the night, and then you're just bombarded with new sounds and people and language and everything. You don't kind of know where to go.
Yep.
So you used the term career break, and this was in 2006.
Yep.
Did you use career break in 2006, that term?
No, I don't think so. But it must have been shortly after that it couldn't have been more than a year after that I probably started using that phrase.
Well, I guess what I'm curious about is I almost don't think that people thought about a career break because when you started traveling 10, 11 years ago, 11 years ago, people weren't looking at long-term travel. I mean, it's
not Americans.
No, there was a little bit. Like I backpacked for a year in 92. Wow. But I was an oddity, of course, but also nobody was really talking about it. For one, there's no social media. So there was no place to, if it wasn't on social, it didn't happen, right? So there wasn't that opportunity for so much information to be shared, but it just wasn't happening at the volume that it's happening now.
Yeah. It's changed
so many people doing it, right?
And it's interesting because when I started doing all my research back in 2005, I think I found a book called Gap Year for Grown-Ups, and I ordered it, and I was like, I thought this was going to be the Bible, and I got it. I remember ripping it open and starting to read it, and I was really excited. And it helped in some ways because there was no one really talking about how to plan long-term travel. But my problem is it was written from a UK author, I think, and Gap Year.
Because they're always doing cool stuff.
Exactly.
In the UK.
But my problem was, I was really kind of embroiled in America, in corporate America. And so the stuff she was talking about didn't really apply to my culture in many ways. And all the things I was really worried about, which was, I'm leaving my career.
Yeah.
Is this a suicide, mission? All those things weren't really brought up because they look at careers differently. It's just a whole different culture. And it was that feeling in that book that then 2 years later led me and another business partner into starting a whole career break website for Americans.
Right.
So that was the Meet Plan Go stuff, which is still around. I haven't worked on it as much lately, but it all was. And our mission was to get career break in everyone's vocabulary. Now, I don't believe that we fully did that, but we helped it along.
Yeah, absolutely you did. Yeah. So when you left that job, and I can see how, maybe people would say, oh yeah, Sherry, a little crazy. She's going off for a year. But then when you came back and you said, yeah, I got to keep going, what was the response from friends and family and coworkers at that time?
Yeah, because even the term blogs weren't even around yet at that time when I finished. So it's interesting because it was really 3 months into my initial break. I was in New Zealand, and that was when I knew right away that I didn't want to go back to what I was doing, that I wanted to keep this idea of experiencing something new every day in my life somehow, that I knew this year wasn't going to be enough. And from that point on, for the rest of my year and a half of travel, of that initial career break, I was always trying to think, how can I keep this going? Because I had budgeted for the initial career break, but not anything beyond that. And so I was on this mission of like, well, how can I make money and do this? And after that whole year, my only answer that I came up with was teach ESL.
Yeah.
Because that really was kind of our only path, which was a shame. I had a really good background in business and IT and all kinds of stuff, but yet all I could think about was like, well, I guess I'm going to teach ESL.
Yeah, but it wasn't ready for you at that point.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
That's right. So the tools and the technology were not ready at that point. I mean, it's gotten so much easier.
But it was really important because then when I came back, And I said, I'm not going to stay. I'm going to sell everything, because I had sublet my apartment at that point for that year and a half. And then I came back and I said, I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to go to Vietnam and teach ESL. So like I had a plan. And even though I think people were kind of like, that's odd, why would you ever do that? And my parents were probably quite nervous about it, I at least kind of had an answer for them.
Yeah, right, right.
That sounded like a job. But I really didn't. And it was to me too. It was certainly a job, and it got me to where I needed to be. But what happened was I moved to Vietnam. I taught ESL for a year, and I kept on building up my website. And that was 2008, 2009. And then things really kind of started to move in the travel industry in that world, in new media, the birth kind of.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I got onto Twitter for the first time then, Facebook, all that stuff. But not with any plan at all. It was just sheer curiosity, and I liked writing and blogging about travel.
So you brought up your family and kind of coming back with the message to them. Was there any travel in their history, in their background?
No.
You didn't learn it from them?
No. I don't know who I learned it from, but the one thing I've realized over the years that has been a real big aha moment for me is I always thought that my mother is very outgoing. My dad is very odd, is what I would say. Love them both. My mother is social. My dad is not as social. So I always thought I was my mother. Like, I really thought that's where I get this from. But what I started realizing over these past years is I'm actually my father, because what drives him to do really kind of odd and unique things in his life, maybe it didn't take him to different countries, but it took him all around the States, and he would do all these strange things. And I realized that I'm that person, because my whole thing that probably has been pushing me this whole time in my whole adult life is I want to be different. I want to make a statement. I don't want to conform to what everyone else is doing. And that drives me probably more than anything. And so like my dad, when I was a teenager, he embarked on this thing where he was walking to all the United States capitals.
No kidding.
Yeah. So that's
walking
what I mean.
From where?
From capital to capital.
How long was that trip?
He finished about half of it. But he did it over the period of a time span of 20 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's still there. He just kind of, and my mother was the point person who would drive and then pick him up. And this was all before cell phones too. So they'd leave Post-it notes on stop signs. And then he would go, and it was crazy.
Wow.
I've actually often thought about picking it up where he stopped and finishing it. But it's still like 8,000 miles that he has to go. But he's done at least that.
Oh, yeah. I can totally see when you answered no. I don't get the travel from them, but just that.
It's the adventure piece.
It is the adventure, and even if he didn't leave the U.S., I mean, he was just
thinks up really kind of quirky things.
Yeah.
He's an individual.
Oh my gosh, that is an amazing story. And you've traveled with him.
Yes, I love traveling with him. Just normally about every couple of years, and even that, like I remember the first time he came and joined me, and we went to China. And it was just him and I. And I remember my sister and brother going, "Are you crazy? You're traveling with dad alone?" Because he was never the warm, fuzzy, and so I thought, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. But from the moment we started, he turns into a different person when he travels. And it's just, he's, like I said, he's normally not super social, but he is when he gets out of the country, and he's so curious about everything. And I think that's when I started realizing, like, oh my God, this is me.
Yeah.
So we went to China together, and then a year and a half later or so, I convinced him to come to Nepal with me, and we walked the Annapurna Circuit when he was 73.
Wow. So he's in good shape.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then at 77, we went to Antarctica together. And then just last year at 80, he did a 2-week hike with me in Costa Brava, Spain.
Wow. Yeah. What's he drinking? What water source is he drinking from?
It's
oh my
really
gosh.
pretty amazing. He's in really good shape. But you wouldn't look at it and say that. He's just blessed with some good genes, I think.
Well, I mean, if coming from a guy who was going to walk or was walking from state capital to state capital, there's something in there. There's something to be said for walking, for sure.
Yeah.
So he
still does. He walks about 5 miles every other day or so, even just at the little track in South Dakota in their tiny little small farming town.
That's really inspirational.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, I can see how you have the friendliness and the gregariousness from your mom, and then this. I wouldn't call you quirky, but you've picked up some kind of curiosity, definitely from your dad. So that's a really neat combination.
Yeah.
Cool. So you don't have a 9-to-5 job. Yay for the non-cubicle people. Yay for people who are not in a cube, in other words.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just great. Yeah. I think on your website, you say this about yourself, that you're a digital nomad. So for those people who don't know what that is, or maybe that's kind of shifted. Or
No, it's probably accurate. I'm just kind of hesitating, I think, because it's like, oh yeah, that's a word that also has come up in the last 10 years. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's probably come up in the last few years, because I was in Chiang Mai and I was chatting with a travel blogger there, and he was saying, oh yeah, there's a bunch of digital nomads here. And I was like, and that was the first time I had heard that. I was like, oh, okay, well, there's a word for you. But yeah, so explain what that is and whether you are or aren't one.
Well, I'm going to say I'm absolutely nomadic, without a doubt. Do not have a home. So that fits, and I'm always moving. Digital, I think, yes, because the majority of my business is done. I can do it from anywhere. All I need is an internet connection. So, I run a blog, I run the website, I do a bunch of social media. Everything that everyone I talk to is via email or Skype or G Hangouts or whatever. So yeah, everything that I do, my whole office is just my laptop, and it's my world, sadly, sometimes. But yeah, so digital nomad is accurate, absolutely.
And are you encountering a lot of these? Like I know that, like I mentioned, Chiang Mai, there's a pocket. There's a big pocket.
That's a big home base.
And so when you travel around, are you finding more and more like kind of pockets of these, or do you just think like, oh, yes, Chiang Mai might be an anomaly? And
well, yes, there are these pockets, and I tend to know where they are because they tend to be cheaper places that have good connections, good internet connections, and it's a chance for kind of people to congregate. Because you're nomadic, you don't have, there's no office buddies to hang out with, right, and so people generally like to group together and kind of work in the same area, even though they may be doing completely different things. I'm trying to think if I run into more of them. I run into more and more people now who have more flexible jobs. It seems like they can work from anywhere. Whether they choose to actually take advantage of that or push that I'm not sure.
Do you mean that they have a job that's based in the U.S., let's say, and that they can go travel and work?
That they could do their job from anywhere. They could do it if they work from home. They could do it other places if they wanted to. Some people don't.
Okay.
But to me, that's the idea, is that you don't have to go into an office every day, and everything you need can be in a laptop.
Right.
Yeah, all you need is the internet. You were asking about other places where those pockets. Lots of stuff in Mexico, for sure. There are little areas that pop up there.
Oaxaca?
Yeah, Oaxaca
Miguel,
is one. I'm not as familiar with Mexico because
Okay.
I don't go there that often, but I was in Oaxaca. I think it's Playa del Carmen.
Okay.
Some of those places.
Oh,
and then
that must be terrible.
It's funny though, because those pockets, and this is kind of my general motto. Whenever I love being social and I love hanging out with other travelers and so on, and that's great. But at the same time, I'm someone who's very, I want to be on my own. I'm very independent. I don't want to follow other people. And in fact, I always say, I kind of see where people are going, whether this is with travel or with digital nomads or anything. I see where people are going, and I want to turn around and go the other way. I want to find my own path.
Yeah.
And that generally is what drives me. So it's funny, I know about the Chiang Mai stuff, and when everyone was in Chiang Mai, I was actually in Vietnam, because I'm just I'm going to go be different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that.
So, yeah.
So, digital nomad, very low overhead in
Yes.
terms of your costs, but you're making enough to pay your storage fee and your cell phone fee
And insurance.
and your insurance, right? Which are the big
Stupid
things.
insurance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. And every year, you know what, I will say, when I embarked on this journey, when I kind of gave up the ESL and started moving then towards maybe there's something more in this whole website thing, I always said, I'll keep on doing this, and I'm going to keep traveling and keep moving as long as I don't ever have to dip into my savings. So as long as I break even or make money. And that has been the case for all these years, I would say. Now, I might barely break even, but I do.
But you're not dipping into your savings,
The other thing that's been really interesting is, over this decade is, and you've experienced it too, in this travel industry world, it's grown. And so every year I actually end up making more money now, because a lot of it is really because these companies, whether it be tourism destination or, tourism boards or brands or whatever, they're slowly changing a lot of their budgets from print media, traditional media, into new media.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, stuff that we were doing for years, you get paid for.
Right. Yeah.
Thank God. The hard part though now is there's all the more competition. So that's the challenge now.
Well, that's the tough thing in general. I mean, we've seen it with photography. Well, first, I don't know what came first, but like with the music industry, right? And then with photography and then with writing, is that there are so many people flooding the market that the rates go down. And it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to pay $600 for a photo in a magazine or on however you're going to use it when you can go to a
Flickr.
stock, when you can go to Flickr, but even when you can go to a stock website and pay $15 for it, and it can be phenomenal. The average person wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah. That's why I think this, kind of career that I'm in, you have to be good at marketing. I talk to so many like new bloggers that are like, oh, but I'm so nervous to pitch. And I'm like, well, if you can't pitch, then this is going to be a hard road.
Yeah.
You've got to get used to putting yourself out there and marketing yourself.
Were you naturally comfortable with that, or did you have to learn that?
I'm not going to say naturally comfortable, but I think one of the things that I realized, and this is just one of the things that travel has taught me, is even though I spent a 14-year career in IT doing project management, I had all these other skills. And even though I didn't use them on a daily basis at all, or even a yearly basis, so they lied dormant. And one of my things that I was so frustrated about in my job was that I knew I wanted to change, but I honestly didn't think I could do anything else. Like I thought, I am an IT project manager and that's all I am, which was great.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought about doing anything else. When I thought about changing jobs, it was always into that same field. Then I got out on the road and I started traveling, and you start kind of being your own brand and your own entrepreneur and stuff like this. And it made me realize that I had all of these skills that had just lied dormant. I had an MBA. I had always worked in business, and it was eye-opening to me. And I realized I'm so much more than a project manager, that, there's all these different things I can do.
Yeah. But the thing is too, like project managers, what I've come to realize are like the most valuable person doing anything, because whether you're blogging or whether you're managing somebody who's working on your website or you are making travel plans, it's all project management. Yeah. It all ties in together.
Yeah. And so to be organized.
Right. So
stick to budgets, stick to timelines.
Exactly.
All that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
But it really was true. Like when I was working, I thought, and even in project management, I thought I can't do anything but IT. Like I would have never even thought about like event project management or anything like that. I was very much in my box. And I think that's how lots of us are, because that's what we do. And until you start to kind of break out of that routine and box, I couldn't see it. I just couldn't see it until I started really turning my world upside down. And then you go, wow, I can do all kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, it's complicated too, because, and I'm putting words in your mouth, or I'm making a deduction here that you work in IT, you're probably making some good money. And so you think your choices are narrow because I'm not going to make that kind of money in event planning, let's say. But you know what? When you get over to event planning, then you find out that you're working 9 to 5 and you're not working 8.
You're not on call.
8, right. And your buzzer's not going off, right? So you're not working 14, 16 hours a day. And then you start to realize, well, you know what? There's a $30,000 value or $40,000 value in that, of getting my time back. So it's complicated.
It is complicated. And I think, it all kind of comes down to, how much you really want that change. And at some point, I realized in my career back then that I was just in so much, there was just so much unhappiness that all of this stuff wasn't worth it anymore. And I was ready to just be a waitress. I didn't care. Like I needed to get out. And so it just kind of depends on how bad it gets and when you hit your breaking point.
Well, you bring up a good point there too, because they say, like in psychology, and it's documented or it's talked about a lot, that people will not make a change until they feel pain. I don't tend to believe that. And I use myself as an example. I won't go into those details, but I don't think that that's always the case. But in your case, and I think in a lot of people's cases, you don't make a change until you get sick. And then you feel forced into just realizing that it was your job making you sick, or your relationship, or whatever it is, fill in the blank. But it is, in your case, you feel like you are in pain, let's just say, and you need to make a change.
I lived a very nice life.
Right. Oh, no, I understand that. But
it was really just, I was unhappy. I needed to change, and I knew I needed to change, but it just had to hit that tipping point where the fear and the cost of doing that change, all of a sudden became less than me staying where I was at, and it just tipped the scales and finally got me going.
What did that pain look like to you, or that unhappiness?
Oh, I don't know if I even remember. I just remember I just was unfulfilled. I felt like the interesting thing with my career was it was very, very good. Most people would have wanted it. And it was climbing the ladder, and I kept on getting more responsibility and more, paycheck that went with that, of course. But what I realized somewhere in there was that I didn't want to climb the ladder. Like, climbing the ladder was not fun to me anymore. It was taking me further away from I know it's hard to believe there is creativity in IT, but there is. Mm-hmm. It was taking me away from any creativity, because I started as a business analyst where you designed new applications and worked with the developers and so on. And that was a point where it's like you could solve problems, and it was creative, and you could create things, and you could make things efficient. I loved making things efficient. And as I moved up the ladder, all I was doing was hiring and firing and managing giant budgets and dealing with,
right.
executives. And
so it was the managerial stuff that.
Yeah. And I just realized it's like, I'm getting further away from doing anything that I actually liked that got me into this industry. And I know this is the projection that like we're all supposed to be happy with and beyond, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
I just wasn't.
That makes sense. I know there's a lot of talk, like in the IT world, because I live in Seattle, there's a lot of IT people around, and many of them, they start up that ladder and then they go, nope, I just want to go back to being an individual contributor. And that's like, there's a lot of talk about that, of just being responsible for yourself and having somebody else who's overseeing it. You don't have to deal with it. So
it's pretty nice.
Yeah. And you took that to the ultimate.
Yeah.
You are the ultimate individual contributor.
That is true.
Yeah.
It is really nice. And there are times where I think, and I always have people that ask me the question, like, could you ever go back to a normal job? And I have to sit and think about it for a long time, but I don't know that I could. Like, I could if I had to, I suppose, but like, I don't think I could.
Yeah.
I could freelance for a company, but the whole idea of being back as a part of a large organization, that would be really hard.
Yeah. You said something earlier about that fear you had of leaving.
Oh, yeah.
Can you say that?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because back when I was working in corporate, the thought of taking off and taking this career break was just crazy still to me, even though I was going to do it. I had so much fear built up about what I was doing, about leaving my career and leaving my job just for a year. And it was so hard to take that leap, but I did it. And now I've been completely nomadic and free for 10 years. And now I'm starting to think about, as we talked about earlier, I'm starting to think about, maybe I should get a home base, so I at least have a place to come back to. But now I have the exact same amount of fear making the change back into kind of normalcy, social normalcy, than I had leaving it,
right?
Which is crazy to me. It's kind of mean. I don't know, like that's not even fair.
Yeah.
But it's just we get used to certain things.
Right.
We're stuck in our ways.
Well, yeah, and I think we to go back to that, the pain and the way that you described it, and I often describe it this way too, is like you get the sense that you want something, and let's say for the typical person, it's they're in a job, they're not happy, there's something niggling away at them that they don't feel good about, and then the universe starts sending them some signals, and then they start thinking about it more, and then it hits this tipping point where you think not doing it is worse than doing it.
Yep.
So you're probably in the early stages of home base. Let me go to Denver. Let me check out some places. Come to Seattle. I'm saying, come check it out.
I love it.
So yeah. So at some point you're going to go, okay, I've got to make the change. You know, like it won't be a pain point for you, but it'll be a point where one thing overtakes the other, and you make that decision.
You're right. It will.
And it just makes sense.
And I think, it's amazing to me how far I've come in this whole mindset too. And I often say, like, the only certainty in my life is uncertainty. And that's what I've now gotten completely used to. Yeah. And the thought of going back to certainty is terrifying.
We could all use more of that every day. I mean, with everything. Because
it pushes you in all kinds of directions. Like, I love it, actually.
Well, it does. But it's also, it sets up when you get out of bed in the morning, and you realize without dread, like, not dreading, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on today. But if you can get out of bed and you can say, who knows what life is going to bring today, bring it on, and I'm going to be flexible. you're going to be a lot happier
Yeah.
than if you get up and you're rigid and you think things have to work this way and the alarm clock has to go off at a certain time and the coffee, I better have coffee in the, in the freezer ready for me to have. And yeah, because life throws you curveballs.
And there's safety in routine, and I get it. And, I crave routine every once in a while. And that's kind of like, it's actually kind of funny how excited I get about routine every once in a while because it's so new to me again. But like these little stints, like what I'm doing right now in Denver, where I'm not traveling on a project and I can like sit and have a normal life, a little bit of a routine again. It makes me really happy, but I don't want it forever kind of thing. But yeah.
Safety of routine. Let's talk about that for a second because it reminds me, I was just in Tanzania for a month and I hiked Kili and then went on safari. And so I was away for a little over a month. And the thing that happens to me when I travel, especially for an extended period of time, for one, I get out of my exercise routine and a lot of places I can still run. I can travel and still run. In Africa, I couldn't because it was either in the city and too busy or there were lions and zebras and giraffes.
Then you better run really fast.
Yeah, then I better run really fast. But what I crave, I do crave routine constantly. So I want my exercise program and I want my protein, kale, spinach smoothie. I want healthy. I want access to healthy items. So how do you deal with that? Like, because like for me, like, when I'm home every day, I have oatmeal in the morning. I run, I have my smoothie, I have my oatmeal, I have my salad and my tofu. I've got it all kind of lined up.
Wow, that sounds like paradise.
Yeah, for me it is. I love it. It's just great. And then when I travel, as much as I love to travel, I feel out of sorts because I don't have all that stuff. So do you deal with that? Is that even an issue for you? Or you just, has it been so long that you're just, every day is a new day and uncertainty is part of it? And
I wish I had as healthy of routines as you had because my only routine is probably drinking coffee in the morning wherever I'm at. But no, I really don't think about that stuff too much anymore. I mean, I do like I said, these little periods where I crave it and it's fun. But as far as, the uncertainty of, what I'm going to eat, how I'm going to exercise, how I'm going to get outside. I mean, the nice thing about what I do typically is that when I'm on the road, actually, I'm typically always moving and active, and I'm carrying a lot of heavy gear. So in some ways, I've been able to kind of maintain, not like cardio fitness, but fitness because I'm always moving. Whereas I think about, I used to sit in a cube, right?
Yeah. Well, you are in great shape, and I know you're off doing a bunch of adventurous stuff too.
Yeah, and I've been able to kind of maintain that just because I'm active. I'm out every day, so I know I'm going to get that vitamin D. I know I'm going to be outside. And so I don't quite know always how it's going to happen each day. Right. Who knows? And I also choose to try to do my travels. I try to choose to do more kind of, active, adventurous type stuff. And that's because that's what I like, but also because it keeps me healthy. As far as food, though, oh boy, no, it's just whatever I'm given, I eat.
And that doesn't, and so you don't have any restrictions on your food?
No.
You're just, good for you.
I'm very lucky that way. Yeah. I don't know how other people do it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm pretty easygoing on all that stuff. And I think, I've had to be just... I appreciate a lovely dinner, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But yeah, lots of times it's just basic stuff. And even coming here from New York to Denver, I brought granola because I'm like, well, I don't want to throw it away. And because, right. I don't know. I'm travel with food every so often, but there's normally not room. And then the stuff about running is interesting because, I know that you've gotten into marathons lately, which by the way, congratulations.
Thanks.
So exciting. I used to be a marathoner back when I was back in corporate and I had a routine and all that stuff. And then when I left to travel, I kept up my running, not at marathon level, but just like 5Ks every other day or something like that. I'd find ways to do it. And it is a great sport to take with you when you travel.
Yeah,
it's
for
easy.
Sure.
And probably I kept that up for a good 6 of the 10 years. And then the last 4 years, it's gotten away from me, I will say. Like that routine of running, which is really sad because I miss it. But I've been embroiled in work. You said, I don't work 9 to 5, but I actually kind of work 24 hours sometimes still now when you run your own business, right? So it is a lot of work, and I've let that kind of take over. And then just this last year, I've had an injury that's been a long process to get through. So, but I'm still like, even coming here today, I'm going to walk.
Yeah, right. Yep.
I think it's important to be out. So,
yeah, for sure. So what is a typical day? Like, well, first let me ask you, do you do press trips where you're with a group of people?
Not many.
Okay.
But I do press trips where individual press trips.
Okay, great. So then you have more flexibility with it. Yeah, I'm with you on that totally. So what's a typical day like for you? Is there a typical day? And what is a typical day? Let's say you are, oh gosh, I don't know. Like, Sherry, I have so many questions because I'm so curious, like, about your lifestyle. So let's say you're going to go to Costa Brava.
Okay.
And you're being hosted. Mm-hmm. Have you been hosted by them yet?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm very good friends with them. They're awesome.
Making an assumption. Yeah.
They're great.
I know they are great. So let's say you're being hosted by Costa Brava. They've set up a 5-day program for you. Mm-hmm. What's your typical day look like with that?
Well, it normally is going to be then me driving because it's, and I love driving in foreign countries. Great. I didn't used to. That's something new. But so it's going to be me driving, and I'm normally going to have some sort of itinerary from the tourism board that says, at 9 o'clock you need to be here, and you're going to talk to this person, or, at 2 o'clock you're going to go make cheese with this goat herder or something, whatever that may be. And I work my way there, and then there's normally like restaurant stops. But it's pretty planned out when you have stuff like that. And I've done a lot of those. And then in between all that, I should say, so that's the stuff you're doing. But now with social media, you're covering it all live. Mm-hmm, so you need to make sure you have an internet connection. And I am putting stuff up on, Twitter and Facebook and so on throughout the day. I'm also doing all my own photography and note taking and stuff like that. It's actually a ridiculous amount of work when you're on one of those trips. Mm-hmm. People think it's like, oh, you get to go to Costa Brava, but it is really work. Yeah. And in fact, what I try to do then is if I'm going to have a trip like that where I know it's just like go, go, go. And those days I'm, up early, answering emails before I start my itinerary for the day. And then you finish that last dinner, in Spain, it's at 1 in the morning. Yeah. And then I sit and I have to catch up on emails. I have to edit a few really good photos so I can put those up the next day. Mm-hmm. It's an immense amount of work. So after I have a trip like that, I try to then schedule an equal amount of time where I'm just sitting in one place. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of feast or famine, even when it comes to if I think about it, like the movement and stuff too, because I'm either like going at 100 miles an hour or I'm sitting for 5 days, editing pictures, writing, just on my butt.
That takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
How do you find that discipline? Is that just innate,
something I've always had?
Okay.
Yeah, I got to say, because it's funny. I've had a few people tell me that recently. Some like roommates and Airbnb hosts that I've stayed with, they're like, wow, you really work hard. You've got so much discipline. And I'm like, I don't ever really think about it. Yeah. Like, this is just what I do. I
heard a great quote recently by someone, and he said, if you're going to Coachella for 8 days, you're not running a business. It's like, gotta, if you're an entrepreneur and you're running a business, and that's exactly what you're doing. Yeah. Then you got to put the time in for sure. Mm-hmm.
And even like these weeks in Denver, this to me is all about work. And yes, I'm trying to have a social life here too, but it is really trying to balance that. But I could sit and work from 8 o'clock until midnight every day if I really wanted to.
Wow. Yeah. And you don't feel burnt out.
Sometimes I do, but yeah.
But on the big picture,
no.
You don't. Mm-hmm. You just
I love it. I really do love it. Like, I don't know why, but yeah, I like going through all the pictures. I love the writing. I love sharing it with people. That kind of stuff is all really fun to me. I find it, hopefully if I'm inspiring people to go and travel and try new things, and then great. Yeah. Like that's the beauty of it. That's what I'm there for.
So the part that you love, what is it when you say, I just love it?
It's really, quite frankly, if I dig down deep, what I love is, well, from the personal side, it's experiencing new things for my own personal enjoyment. From more kind of the business side, and what drives me is the idea of inspiring other people to go and to really kind of also get them with the idea of like, no, I don't want to follow everyone else either. I want to, go blaze my own trail. I want to it's that kind of stuff. And I don't write explicitly about I don't write all these inspirational posts or anything like that lots of times, but I do, I write about unique areas that they probably don't know about. So whether they're going to actually go out and travel there years from now or next week, or they just read it and go, I've never heard of Thuringia, Germany.
Right, exactly.
That's so cool. Right. Uh-huh. Bratwursts were created there.
Yeah, right.
That is just as much enjoyment to me as anything. I want to educate people. I want to open them up to the world.
You know, I know there's studies that have been done about this. That's like when you give, you have more energy, or the little synapses are going off in your brain. So that sounds like that's part of it. That really, right, that really kind of floats your boat and kind of keeps you going in terms of that.
Yeah. I get super excited when I can show people something new and get them to think like they're going to go someplace new that they haven't heard of, or just blaze their own trail.
Right.
Really.
Yeah. Is that conducive to working with PR people? Because it seems like the PR people want you to go to X destination and help promote that. And when you get off the beaten path, it's like, oh, yeah, like we don't want that so much.
It is harder, right? I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Like, so I have to balance this. I have to balance business with my own needs lots of times, right? So like where I really love to travel are the less developed countries, the harder countries. You know, if I think about it, those tourism boards generally do not have budgets to be working with writers or bloggers. So those I have to do on my own to keep me interested.
Right.
And then I have to be okay with more traditional stuff. But even within the traditional stuff, I try to really push them. And the nice thing is, I've been doing it now for so long that I have data. So I can, you know, anytime you can show a business person data,
right,
it's a win.
See, project management.
Yep, exactly. So, you know, I can bring to them like data on the last similar trip that I did, or on a topic that might have been kind of off the beaten path or something like that I can show them that people are interested in it.
Oh, right.
The other thing I'll also often talk about is if it's, you know, it's something where from an SEO search engine perspective, basically, you know, if it's something that hasn't been written to death about, you actually have a better chance of it getting found lots of times.
Right.
So, you know, I can go to Paris and write about the Eiffel Tower, and probably no one from a search engine perspective is going to see it because it's just going to get buried.
Right.
But, you know, I can go do something really unusual in Paris, or you know, find something else, and you've got a much better chance of being seen. As well as that also equates to the freelance market too. So I do some freelance writing too. Like me pitching a story about the Eiffel Tower is going to go nowhere, you know? So you've got to find these unique angles and stuff. And I think it just, that's what I'll talk to them about when I'm trying to push them a little bit.
So how do you find your next gig? Like, how far out from today do you know your plans?
Well, this year's a little different because I'm trying to slow down a little bit. But normally I know my plans, I'm going to say 3 months out at the most, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would have the next 3 months planned.
Yeah, I would kind of know any big travel projects going on, which is true. That is about true now. I know that my next big travel project is to the Northwest Territory in the Arctic in Canada. And then after that, that's in April. And in May, I know I'm going to go to Norway to do a big driving trip in the fjord area. After that, I'm not sure. I'm in talks with a lot of different people, but I don't know where it's all going to end up.
That because you mentioned 3 months. Do you think that is a coincidence? Because we started this conversation and you said you knew what you were going to do for the first 3 months. And then after that, it was all up in the air.
Maybe I just gravitate to 1/3.
You might. Yeah. I know. You're the 1/3 gal. Isn't that funny?
That is interesting. I've never ever thought about that. Yeah, I've just kind of figured out it's how it works out. I mean, I do plan things quite far in advance sometimes, but they're bigger like projects. Those are big.
Well, like the Mongol Rally.
Yeah.
Like you knew a long time in advance.
Yeah, that took over a year of planning.
Yeah. So can you explain what that is?
The Mongol Rally?
Yeah.
That was one of my highlights in all my travels probably. So I think it was about 5 years ago that I did it. But it's a charity rally. It's based out of a charity rally, but it's really a giant adventure where you buy a car in London, and it has to be a inappropriate car, meaning kind of a small car. So we were restricted to a 1.2 liter engine, which is pretty tiny, especially because what you're doing with that car is you are driving it from London to Mongolia. And there's no route. There's no support along the way. There's no like stops where you meet everyone or anything like that. The company that puts it on, they put on a starting party and an ending party, and you are completely on your own between there. And you can take the really fast route, which would be to kind of go up through Russia because there's paved roads there the whole way, and you can probably get there in maybe little over 2 weeks if you go every day hard at it. Or it took us 5 weeks, but we did 5 weeks, and there were only 2 days where we didn't get in that car and drive. I mean, it was constant. We were pushing ahead.
So there must be a limit, like a maximum. If they have the finish line, like how long do they hold out for you?
Well, the Adventurous, the company who puts it on, will hold out, I think, maybe 6 weeks.
Okay.
But there are plenty of teams that still, just for the hell of it, they'll come in later or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's just a huge adventure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's completely unsupported. So you can go whatever route you want. You can go through whatever countries you want. You can, whatever. There's the only real rules are you have to stick to this kind of inappropriate car. Their motto, their motto, which I love, I've adopted kind of for my life, is it's not an adventure if you know you're going to make it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I believe that wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of look at everything with that lens now.
Right.
And so, yeah, at the time, when we did it 5 years ago, about 50% of the teams made it. And the idea, the charitable part was you raised money for charity, basically. But then also, if the car actually made it to Mongolia, then it stayed in Mongolia and it got auctioned off for charity.
Wow.
So ours did. That was the good news.
Yeah.
We were so excited.
So
someone's driving our crappy little car in Ulaanbaatar.
Right. And you don't want to buy a $20,000 car because you're not going to get it back.
No.
Right. So you might as well buy a cheapie. And
I don't remember how much we spent. It couldn't have been more than $3,000, I don't think. Like, it was a little Nissan Altima, and it already had over 100,000 miles on it. And we just beat the heck out of it.
Who did you do that with?
I did it with Dave and Deb.
Oh, you did with
Dave.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Oh, I forgot that you were in that car because I was like, they did that too.
God.
So I forgot about that.
And it was just completely on a whim. I had my eye on this thing. I saw it somewhere on the internet, and I was hot on it. Like, the moment I saw it, because mainly it scared the crap out of me.
Uh-huh.
I told you before that I never used to drive, that I loved driving in countries, but it wasn't like that.
Right.
I was terrified of driving in foreign countries before.
Yeah.
And this was my way to get me over my fear.
Yeah.
And plus I just thought, like, this sounds like the most badass thing you could ever do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had been to Mongolia before just on a regular tour that I took, and had been driven. I never even would have considered driving in Mongolia, out into the Gobi Desert for 2 weeks and around. And I remember my astonishment at, like, how do they even get around? There's no roads. How do they know where they're going? And that stuck in my head. And then I saw this Mongol Rally stuff, and I thought, that must be the hardest thing anyone could ever do on Earth. And I want to do it.
Were there unpaved roads? Like, you just didn't know where you were going?
Oh, okay. All of Mongolia at that time, it's changing quite a bit.
Okay.
All of Mongolia at that time, no asphalt. The only asphalt starts about 20 kilometers from Ulaanbaatar.
Okay. So up until that point, are you on paved roads?
Sometimes.
Okay.
We ended up.
So you're really kind of winging it.
It was, because Kazakhstan was a complete, I don't want to say disaster. It was a hardship because we ended up getting on some areas that we thought were roads that weren't, and they ended up being these pathways, and there's camels, it was insane. But and then, so in Mongolia, we would just drive in the direction that we thought we had to go, because we didn't really know. And then we'd just pull over and camp when the sun went down, wherever. It was just, life was very simple and beautiful.
And you said that was 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
And that was one of the best trips you've ever done.
Yeah.
Neat.
It was just, it was so unique.
Yeah.
And I look back on that now and go, I can't believe I did that.
Would you do it again?
Oh, I probably would, even knowing how hard it is. Yeah. I figure it's got to be, I've never had a baby, but I figure it's kind of like childbirth, right?
What makes it so hard?
It was some of the hardest travel I've done, because every day there's decisions that you have to make. And you're in a small car in extremely stressful situations.
With people that you
sort
may or
of
may
know.
not. Yeah, you may or may not know.
Yeah, we didn't really know each other before we went. We knew each other digitally. That was it. We knew we each had blogs. But how people handle stress and fear and adventure is all very different and personalized to us, right? So now you're working with other people I just can't even stress how stressful the situation was. The hard part with setting it up was, Western Europe was a breeze, no problem. Once we got out of Romania, everything was up for grabs, because we also had all these visas. And when you sign up for the visas to get in and out of these countries, you have no idea what your real route is. You look up stuff on Google Maps and you go, okay, I think we're going to go this way. But you don't know the condition of the roads. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to have breakdowns or whatever. So you put these dates in the visas that they require you to have. And lots of those countries, once you get into the stands and Russia, you're required to be in and out by a certain date. And so all of a sudden, every day we'd wake up and be like, oh my gosh, when do we have to be out of Russia? Okay, we're not going to make it out. And when do we have to be in Mongolia? And it just it was a good project management thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And so those are just things that you cannot plan for. And every day you have to wake up and go, how far did we make it yesterday? Where are we at? Where do we have to be?
Yeah, right. What do we have to make up?
Yeah.
What kind of
and then
time?
you look at the maps and go, is this really a road? Do we really think this is a road? Does anyone know? How do we know? Like, it looks like a road on Google, but many times we'd get on them and they weren't.
Right.
So,
yeah. Neat. Wow. What's another highlight to like a big trip that you've done?
Lots of them. I'll briefly say, because it was kind of in the same vein, I did another trip with the Adventurous, another charity trip, driving an auto rickshaw across India for 2,000 miles with another woman.
What was that
rickshaw run?
Oh, I've always wanted to do that.
It
That's
is
in the
crazy.
south, right?
Well, we started in the south and went all the way up to the north around Bangladesh and finished in Shillong.
Oh, okay. I thought there was one that went from like maybe Bangalore down to Chennai.
There probably is.
Just down in the south. I can't remember the exact route.
Yeah, there are different ones, and lots of them are all for charity. But yeah, we actually kind of went triangular, just cut right through the middle of the country, which was fascinating. That was a whole different kind of stress, but it was amazing. We raised a lot of money that time. Well, we raised $16,000 for charity water.
Wow.
It was just me and another woman.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
We really put work into that, so it was great.
Was that all like social media and blogging and
in connections that I had? I went back to a bunch of companies that I had worked with in the past.
Amazing.
And pitched it to them.
Yeah,
and then we did some auctions and stuff like that, and worked with. It was really a lot of work because it was really pulling together all these companies and brands that I've worked with in the past and trying to get them on board to either donate something for auctions or much like what you were doing with Passports with Purpose. It's a giant amount of work, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great.
Other big trips, the Annapurna Circuit with my father was hugely meaningful. I did the Camino de Santiago on my own. That was really fun. I'm trying to think other big meaningful trips. And then anytime I go to the really far remote, like Antarctica, the Arctic is really special. I just finished Antarctica for the second time.
Wow.
But this time it was a completely different route. So we went from New Zealand in a very small ship all the way through the Southern Ocean to the Ross Sea. And that was a 28-day trip. And that will definitely go down in my history as one of the best.
Did someone sponsor you for that?
Yeah. Heritage Expeditions is a small family-run cruise company, probably one of the only ones left. And they're based out of New Zealand.
Oh, good for them.
And I had worked with them before. I went up to Wrangel Island to see polar bears out of Russia. Yeah. So through the Bering Strait and all the way up to Wrangel Island above Russia. So they knew me from before. Yeah. And I told them their offices were in New Zealand, and I was going to be down in New Zealand because I was traveling with my niece there. And so I just wrote them to say, like, hey, it would be great to have a beer with you and see you guys in the office or whatever, because I'm never in New Zealand. And they're like, great. Do you want to get on a ship? And I said, oh, well, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Twist my arm, right?
Let me see if I can change some stuff around.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, because that was a whole month. So that was huge. Wow. And it was also a whole month of being offline, which for me that's tough. Really a challenge. Mm-hmm. That was a whole different kind of challenge.
Right.
But really, really fun. And just I hope that everyone can go to Antarctica once in their lifetime. It's so special.
So speaking of being online and kind of, you've been doing this for 10 plus years. Things are constantly changing. Like you said, people weren't, there were blogs around in 2006, but people didn't really know what they were. They really weren't up on it, it wasn't a thing. And, the social media comes and goes, Vine and Snapchat, and, you've got these things that are popular and then they disappear. You must have to be constantly not only looking for opportunities in the world to go visit, but you've got to keep like a really firm foot planted on what's happening online, because that's because you're digital, right? Yeah. And you have to be able to talk with the PR people. Mm-hmm. So how do you keep up with everything?
That's probably the area that I need the most work on, quite frankly, because it's very hard, because you can't run a website without understanding how the web works and understand, I can write a beautiful article, a beautiful piece for my blog. But if no one reads it, it doesn't matter. Right. So you have to understand, like, how do I get my stuff seen? And it's not a person that's making that decision. It's Google and it's algorithms and stuff like that. And it's so complicated. And then there's just like running the website, the technical side of the website. And even though I was in IT, I wasn't a technical person. So I have to hire people to do that stuff. But that is an area that I wish I had more time to invest in. And it's actually gotten so important now, though, that it's one of the reasons also why I kind of want to slow down a little bit. Because normally, in a normal year, I keep track of how many beds I sleep in a year. And then I kind of extrapolate that. And it's basically that I move about every 3 days on average to a different bed. And I need to bring that down a little bit, because I have to only when I slow down a little bit do I have time to catch up on all this stuff that I really need to be aware of and be kind of I feel like I'm on the cutting edge of travel.
Yeah.
I am not on the cutting edge of
Of
travel
being cutting
technology.
edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard. And it, I think it's probably held me back in some ways too. So it's kind of been
So
on my
what
mind.
would your focus be? Trying to figure out the social media aspect of it more?
Nope.
Or
For me right now, it's really, I would like to figure out more about the search engine optimization and how to get in more traffic to the blog. Because there's there's just some technical magic that needs to be worked there. And because I have such longevity and I've got, thousands of posts and they're all really good, but they can't all be found.
Right.
You go, well, okay, what's the problem here? So right now I'm kind of looking at that, reorganizing things on the site, getting rid of old stuff that doesn't matter based on old rules that we knew about that really don't apply anymore because things are always changing.
Yeah.
So cleaning house in a way, even though I don't have a house. That's one of the things I
You're
love about
cleaning your
not
other
having a
house,
house is I'm like, I never have to clean.
Right.
Or buy toilet paper ever.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, so I'm finding that you can't just travel full time now and run a successful blog. It's very, very hard. If you don't plan the downtime, you can be anywhere in the world and have that downtime, but you have to plan downtime.
Right.
To get all the other business side of it done.
Do you get stressed?
Oh yeah.
And how does that, give me an example of something that would really stress you out, that might wake you up at 4:00 in the morning where you can't sleep, like, oh, I gotta address that today.
It's so funny that you say that because I do now wake up at 4:00 in the morning and think about stuff, but I'm thinking about what is it? Sometimes it's about where I'm going next or where I'm going to sleep. Boy, sometimes it's the bigger decisions of this home base decision. It's not necessarily the guts and of the internet stuff, of the technical stuff. It's more life decisions. It's I really, I need to figure out a home base, or should I, or should I not? It's that whole waffling thing.
Yep.
And then there are some very specific, I suppose, projects where you want them to come through and where you're thinking about that and what you can do, or, should I go here instead of here? Or should I position myself here instead of here? It's just, there's no roadmap. You make all the decisions, which is beautiful, but at the same time terrifying and keeps you awake.
So a slight sidetrack, but this has to do with a post that I saw on your Facebook feed. Emergency contact.
Oh my God.
You said something about that. The emergency contact is what stresses you out, or you don't like that question on the.
Yeah. And I didn't really put down why. I let people leave that to themselves, but it is true. I was just filling out a form for Norway because I'm going to be going there, and they made me, list an emergency contact. And I get to that question. I have a big sigh, and it's really because this sounds really stupid, but I think deep down it's because I'm alone, and I know I'm alone, and answering that question just throws it back in my face. And it's not that, it used to be I'd put down my parents. My parents are 80. They're not going to want a call from someone from some country saying Sherry's in the hospital, and my mom doesn't even know where that country is or whatever, I'm not going to put them through that. So then it kind of comes down to my sister, my brother, friends, but no one really knows where I am. Even though everyone should know because it's all over social media. My closest friends really don't follow that stuff anymore, nor my family, except my mother. But I think it just stresses me out because I don't know who to put, because it reminds me that it just makes me feel very isolated in a strange way. So it's not that I'm scared that I'm going to get hurt or something like that. That part, no.
Right.
It's really just this idea of I've lived my whole life solo. I'm super independent, and I love that. But there are certain triggers that set off all the worry about that. And that is one of them. All the downsides of being independent and solo.
Right. And I'm surprised to hear you say that because you do know so many people all over the world, yet you're saying that there's a bit of loneliness in that. Yeah,
definitely. It's each year that goes by, I think it's more isolating, which is strange because here I am, I often wonder what it would be like to be a Hollywood star, because I think they must wrestle with a lot of the same stuff where everyone knows you, but no one knows you. No one really knows you. And that's kind of how I feel. And the whole isolation thing, I'm not ever really a lonely person, but certainly I feel more isolated in what I do day to day than I ever used to. And meaning when I worked in corporate or, I was grounded before. And now really, I just kind of feel like I'm out there on my own and no one really knows what I'm doing sometimes, or where I'm at, or how I'm doing.
Nighttime serial killer.
Yeah.
No one knows. So do you think that that comes from just having been on the road for 10 years? Do you think it comes with a bit of maturity? Do you think it comes from there's a change in everybody's more isolated now because they're online? Where do you think that comes from?
I hadn't thought about the last thing, the whole everyone being more isolated. That could be, because that's an interesting thought with like social media, because it's like, we share more and more, but I don't know how truthful some of the stuff, like it's hard to get to the bottom of it. But for me, I think it's probably from being on the road so long and not having any grounding. Someone asked, I remember once, it was somewhere here in Colorado, I was hiking and on a trip, and someone was marveling at the fact that I didn't have a home. And she goes, well, no, but you have a car or something, right? And I'm like, no. She's like, but you sleep in a van, right? And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't have any of that. And she just sat there just befuddled about the whole thing. Then she goes, but how do you stay grounded? And I said, and I thought about it for a while. I'm like, I have no idea. And clearly that's part of the problem.
Do you have certain practices?
Well, since I've felt that way occasionally, I've tried to do better at staying in touch with people on the road. Because I have a big tolerance for being alone and being on the road. I really do.
Do you have siblings?
I do, brother and sister. But we're a good German Lutheran family, and we love each other, but we don't talk a lot. We do when I'm in the States more. And when I see them, it's like, it's great, but no one's really like talking to me on any regular basis. I talk to my parents probably once every couple of weeks or so. But there's just really no grounding. And I do try to now talk to my friends more, like set up Skype dates or Google Hangouts and stuff like that. And I'm now like on a texting plan where I can text for free from anywhere, which helps. So I know that I realize that there needs to be a few more touch points.
Right.
And also the other thing, how I started traveling, I'd be gone for like 16 months at a time from the US and then come back in and stuff like that. Whereas now it's very much, I do shorter, this whole 4-month thing was a little bit longer, but now I do shorter stuff and come back in because just sort of being in the US sort of grounds me, but it is still really about going back and seeing those old friends who knew me back when I worked in New York in corporate or old travel friends that I've made from a long time ago, or seeing family or whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think that's the biggest thing that you'll get having a base? I mean, obviously you don't miss like pasta night, like Friday night pizza night. That's not what you're craving.
No, no.
Because that's out there. Just so you know. Really? Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how many people I know do Friday night pizza night. And oh
my God, that would be crazy.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, can you imagine every Friday night? But one of the things that I do find interesting is that, and this has cropped up from like a bunch of different, like just different aspects of my life. I've heard of people getting together like for meals. Like I've got friends who do Friday night spaghetti night, and they've got this spreadsheet that they put online, and they say, first 8 people who sign up come to Friday night spaghetti night. Every Friday night, we're going to have spaghetti and meatballs. Maybe you can bring a salad or a side or a dessert or whatever. And just the first 8 people get to come. And they do it every Friday night. And then this woman I just met in San Diego said, she didn't realize I didn't live there. She said, I do these like once every 2 weeks or once a month. I do Saturday night potluck. So, come. And it's just people show up. And I just thought that was a brilliant idea. So I think these things are happening where people they do crave that connection because we're not getting it online.
No.
So, and certainly I've been thinking I'm going to do like Sunday night soup and salad because it would be easy for me to make a big pot of soup on a Sunday. And then whoever wants to show up, shows up. And then I put everything else in the freezer.
Yeah.
Just like it's so easy.
Yeah. I do think like digital connections are great. I love the fact that we are able to do business from anywhere in the world and able to have relationships from anywhere in the world. But I believe in the, just being face to face. I really do. I just had a meeting today about an upcoming media event that I'm going to, and we were talking about, what's so great about it. And I said, what's great about it is I actually get to network and meet with people face to face. And that I get more gigs and stuff from that than I do ever from pitching online or just talking online. When I can meet someone face to face, it's huge, even for business. But certainly for personal life, I think it's really important that you have touch points. And it's funny because I remember this backs us up to our way earlier conversation now of career breaks. And when I started that other website, Meet Plan Go, when we decided to have events around the United States, that might have been how also I met you. I'm trying to think.
Ah, that's right. I know
I
know.
met.
Could be. Yeah. I remember you were at an event in Seattle. You came
Yeah.
out to Seattle, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I do remember.
But
At the Dubliner bar or something.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole thing was we started with this online website, and it was going to be a resource for, North Americans who wanted to take a career break. And that's exactly what it was. But I actually started getting bored with it. And I thought, well, everyone's doing websites now. And of course, in my mindset of like, I want to do something different, I'm going to go the opposite way and go, I want to meet people in person. And I think it's important for people who want to take these big leaps of change in their lives to have a kind of a face-to-face, kind of cheerleader, or, have people they can meet in person, especially in their community. Because there's going to be so many people that tell them they're crazy or they can't do it or whatever, kind of frown upon it, because back then it was quite strange. So we decided to have these events all around the country. And the whole idea for me was like, okay, done with this digital stuff. This is before digital even became huge. And, I think it's important for people to meet face to face, especially when you're going through these, like you're making a giant change in your life.
Right.
Which I think I still believe that. And I believe that, well, if we were to start up some of the Meet Plan Go events again, that they'd still do well because of that.
Right. Are you working on that? Are you thinking of starting that back up?
Oh, I always think about it. There's not enough time in the day is my problem. But I have thought, like, if I did slow down, I would focus more on that, because I do believe it's still such a great idea. And I really love working with those people. And still to this day, I mean, the last event we did was 2013, I think, 2013, maybe 2014. But I still get emails to this day from people, couples, solos, whatever, that would be like, I attended a Meet Plan Go in 2011 and we finally went, or we're leaving next week for our big trip, and we've been planning this, and you guys were such a huge part of it. I know. And I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah. So I would love to start it again. I'm just not enough people. I need more people.
I know. More people like you. That's the problem, right?
Yeah. But I would love to, because I think it's a really good thing. And it's made so many friendships for me, and it's taken me so many places. And
neat. Hey, before we wrap up here, and I really appreciate your time today, and it's so great
so fun.
I know it's so amazing that we're in the same city. It's just great, and not my city, like just in the middle of the country.
Yeah, I love
almost.
it.
Yeah,
we can meet anywhere in the middle.
I know, it's great. So, what would you? Because this is Be Bold. We're talking about bold things here. What would you consider to be your biggest bold move in your lifetime? Like, what have you done that you look back and you go, man, that was really ballsy. That was really bold. And it may not even have to do with travel. It could be anything.
Yeah, no, I am thinking, because there's a few different things that come up. I'm going to say probably the biggest, though, is that the decision when I came back after that year career break, the decision to keep going was probably the biggest. Mm-hmm. Because at that point, I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I went to go teach ESL, but I went on my own to Vietnam to go live there. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. Mm-hmm. But it was that point that I had made this decision that then really truly changed the direction of my life. And I of course had no idea of knowing how big of a change that was going to be at the time, because I told myself every time I'd get scared about the decision, I'd tell myself, well, I can come back whenever I want, Mm-hmm. But that was probably the biggest, because even though I did, it was a big decision to leave my corporate job for the year, the whole idea was I was still going to come back.
Right.
But the decision to finally go, nope, we're pointing the ship in this direction and just heading this way, unknown.
And no regrets.
No, never. Mm-hmm. I don't regret anything in life, honestly. I believe it's where we're supposed to be. Like every bad thing that's happened, there's nothing to regret. It's just a waste of time.
Yeah, yeah. It's easy to go back and think, why did I do that?
But I think, and other things like just socially, I think it's just in my personality, like I said, I feel like my whole life has been bold in the sense that, I never got married. I never had kids. I've always done things that have been different and kind of fighting the system, the social system. And I never really understood what that was or why I did it. And now, of course, as I've gotten older and look back on all this stuff, I think it is just who I am. Mm-hmm. And, I'll always be that person who wants to see where everyone's going and turn around and go the other way.
Interesting.
Like in everything in my life.
Yeah.
All of my life decisions, travel or personal.
And you think that's a direct lesson from your dad?
Probably.
That's neat. That's a great lesson. I think it's a great thing for sure. What's your next bold move that you would say?
Well, it would be if I ever decided on this home base thing.
That would be the bold thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you bold travel, but definitely I think my hardest decision that I'm wrestling with right now is that, like, do I get a home base? And when I say home base, it's not like I'm going to be there all the time. In fact, I'm going to still do probably similar amounts of travel. It's just that I don't have to think when I get back on that plane, when I'm coming home, I have a home.
Right.
And things can be, we talked about this earlier before around, like, I can hang things on hangers.
Mm-hmm.
I can leave things. I can leave my toothbrush on the counter. I always talk about that. Like, I've had 10 years of being a professional guest in places, whether that's staying with people or, Airbnb or, with strangers or whatever. But I am so trained now to be a professional guest, and for me, that's sort of like being invisible. Like, I don't want to interrupt people's lives. That I just, the idea of having my own place where I can leave stuff and unpack is very, very different for me.
Yeah. That just sounds so crazy to me.
Yeah.
Sounds crazy. But it's great. I understand. There's a part of me that totally understands that. But I've got this other part, as I said. It's like, where's my smoothie? I want my protein. And I'm on a different diet than, it's a more restrictive diet. So I've got,
that'd be hard.
Got different things. Yeah, for sure. So great. Well, tell us where we can find you on social media, website, all that good stuff.
Website, well, it's pretty easy. It's ottsworld.com.
And that's OTT.
Yep, OTTSWORLD.com. Mm-hmm. It's been that ever since 2006 when I left. Someone gave me the URL as a going away present because I knew nothing, and I had this big long number for a URL because I didn't know anything, and they're like, no one's going to remember that. And so I never had to go through the agony of deciding what I was going to call my website because someone named it for me.
Awesome.
And it's good. So ottsworld.com, you can find me there. That's all the blogging and writing, and you can get to the photography from there. Social media is all pretty much the same. Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, all of that is at Ottsworld. I think Facebook is Ottsworld Travel or something like that.
Great.
So yeah, all those places. I'm trying to think if I don't have any speaking engagements coming up. Every so often I do.
You put those on your website, or you
probably
announce them in social media?
Yeah.
So okay, good. Well, we'll look for you.
Yeah, I'm excited to see yours tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. Super. Sherry, thanks so much for coming today. It was just great to catch up with you. And this has just been delightful. Yeah. So thanks.
This is really great. And best of luck on all this. I love what you're doing with the Be Bold site.
Yeah. So. Thank you very much. Yeah. Super. I can't tell you how much I loved that conversation, and it just warms my heart that I finally get to share it with you. I know we couldn't have replicated that conversation, but perhaps I can get Sherry back on here so we can talk about what it's like for her to have a home base now, and if those fears that she had about it were unfounded. I'm sure she's got past it, and she's making an amazing time of it in Denver. For show notes, including links to what Sherry's doing, check out the BeBoldPodcast.com website for each episode and sign up for email alerts each time a new episode comes out. Now, those show notes also show up in whatever app you're using to listen to this episode, so you can find them there as well. I'm working on a Patreon page where you'll be able to support what I'm doing through a small donation. Now, those funds will help pay for my audio editor, The Magician, and will help cover travel costs to cities where I want to record some amazing guests. So stay tuned for that. That's a work in progress right now, and I hope to launch that pretty soon. For now, you can connect with me by friending me on Facebook. I'm WonderGal on Instagram and Wanderluster on Twitter when I do tweet out these episodes. You can find out more about me by visiting wanderlustandlipstick.com. Sign up for my newsletter on the Wanderlust and Lipstick site, and you'll receive a series of tips for making your travel safer. Now, in the coming months, I've got giveaways for products from Prana and Black Rapid camera straps, and winners will only be chosen from subscribers to my newsletter, so make sure you're on board to get those details. Check out wandertours.com if you want to travel with me. Details are now available for the 2019 Women Only Ireland tour. Those spots are going quickly, and I've got space on our co-ed tour to Papua New Guinea next year as well. Ladies, don't forget to join the Be Bold Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/BeBoldGroup. You're going to love the positivity, encouragement, and the support from that community. We've got more than 2,600 women in there sharing information. and giving kudos and high fives to each other. It's really pretty phenomenal. While you're online, go to the Be Bold Podcast Facebook page and give that a like as well. Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Be Bold Podcast. I am so happy and delighted that you are here with me. I do really appreciate it. Until next time, be bold.